was a girl that I didn't left her there.
Welcome to another episode of Time Travel, the series where we use a metal detector and genealogy resources to uncover items of the past and to learn more about those who came before us. I've been really busy lately because I've been working on the house. We got new siding and insulation and stonework and house wrap and new doors and new windows, so it's been a whole lot of chaos. So today's video will be short and it'll be canned, meaning everything's already been found. But while I was working on the house, I found something amazing. So let me tell you about it. So I was in the house tearing down a wall and I tore off a piece of baseboard, old 1907 baseboard, and I always flip it around and look at the back because sometimes you can see calculations and things that the original carpenters from 100 years ago did on the back of the wood. So I flipped over this one piece of baseboard and on the back there was a name stamped into the wood, and the name was Ruth R. Wands. Ruth R. Wands was the original owner of this house, and here's what the house looked like back in about like 1916. Now I don't have that piece of wood anymore because I had to put it back on the wall because I couldn't find a replacement for it, so it's in the house. But Ruth R. Wands was the original owner of this house in 1907. She never married, she never had any kids, and her occupation was listed as a caretaker. She took care of her mother in this house. And I believe I found two things in this house that actually belonged to her. Now if you look at this wallpaper right here, that looks like 1920s, doesn't it? That's a good find. That's 1920s wallpaper, but that's not the original. The original is on the back of this. There's another layer of wallpaper, and that's original. I can tell that's every bit of 1900. I guess you would call it like Edwardian style of decorating, maybe. But I'll show you the original wallpaper. Look.
The wildest winds born with a love deep as the ocean. This was a girl that I didn't win, left her there back in the mountains to see the world. It's just to gain all in our returns, no earthly treasures could ease this heart so full of pain.
So here it is. Here's the original 1907 wallpaper. Now, here's what I'm thinking. I don't know much about women. I know that men don't care about wallpaper. It doesn't matter. If I was just gonna put up wallpaper, I would just pick any wallpaper that wasn't hideous and just put it up. It doesn't matter. I don't care. That's men. It's good to be a man. You see, I've never seen a woman not take a long time picking out wallpaper. You know, if a woman's going to pick out wallpaper or tile or something like that, they always have to look at all the options and they have to say, I don't know if I like this one or that one. I think I might like this one, but I'm not sure. That always happens, right? So, because the house was owned by a woman, I think that Ruth R. Wands picked out this wallpaper. I don't see a woman walking into a house and saying, put up any wallpaper that you want. So back then, when you bought your wallpaper, you had two options. You could go down to the local hardware store and pick from their samples, or you could order from the Sears catalog. In 1907, Sears catalog had a ton of wallpaper, and here's what their samples look like. But if she went down to the local hardware store, she would have went down the street there and picked it out. So let's go look at the hardware store. So here we are downtown here, and so all of these buildings right here are all like from the early 1900s, but the one we're interested in is right behind me. Take a look at. So here's the building right here, and if you look up there, you'll see what it says. It says hardware. So Ruth Wands probably walked right down this sidewalk and came right through that door right there and probably picked out some cabinet handles or some doorknobs or some wallpaper or something from her house that was being built about 5 minutes away from here. Pretty neat. So the first thing that I've got to show you is this locket. It's like a brass locket and it doesn't have anything in it. If you open it, it falls apart, so I'm not going to do that. So if you look at the back, there it is, that floral pattern with lines, like that gaudy floral pattern. I think they call these like Edwardian style lines. And so I believe that this right here, since it's a heart-shaped locket, I think it belonged to a woman. And it's old, you know, I mean, that's early 1900s, I believe. And so I can't say that this exactly belonged to Ruth Wands, but if you look at this picture, and here she is, if you look at that picture and then look at this locket and then look at the wallpaper, it kind of matches up. I mean, if you look at the design and her picture and the wallpaper that she chose, you can see how someone who chose that wallpaper would also choose a floral design like that. So I think that this may have been owned by her. The next thing that could have belonged to her is this, whatever this is, this big chunk of glass right here. I mean, if you look at the color of this aqua color and how thick and clunky the glass is, I had no idea what that was, but you know, that's heavy, it's old, the color is old, so I'm saying that this could have been owned by her. Okay. The next thing, I don't know if this was owned by her, but I found it out here in the garden. You know what this is? It is like a hitching ring, right? So this was handmade by a blacksmith. So you would pound this into a tree or a post, and then you would use this part right here to like hitch the horse up to. And so it was like a cheap piece of hardware that you could just make a hitching post out of anything. And speaking of horses, here's an old horseshoe that I found out here in the garden, and this probably comes from back in the days when the carpenters and laborers had to make use of horses. I mean, if you can imagine a bunch of guys standing out here with shovels digging a basement by hand, you know, can you imagine how much dirt they had to take out of here to do that? That's amazing. This is a mystery. This probably didn't come from Ruth Wands, but you know what it is? It's obsidian, and I find pieces of this in my garden, and the crazy thing is that obsidian is not native to the state of Illinois where I live. I mean, obsidian does not occur here. So that gives me two options. One, somebody brought it here and just threw it for whatever reason, or it goes back to the days of like Indians when they used to like trade with other Indians from far away, and somebody brought back some obsidian and they made some arrowheads out of it or something like that. But nobody can tell me exactly how this got here, because this obsidian is not found where I live naturally. So thank you for watching. I've got a ton of work to do, so I got to get back to that. But stay tuned. In the very near future, I plan on doing another full time travel metal detecting genealogy video. And this time we're going to be investigating a crime scene from the 1890s. So I'll see you then. Thank you.
Fairer than the sweetest flowers, restless as the wildest winds, born with a love deep as the ocean. This was a girl that I did win, left her there back in the mountains. among the flowers she laid. I'll go